Hey guys, this is Miss Alta speaking. Today we are going to be discussing the different personal skills in the job market and how these two topics are related to each other. So to begin the class, we are going to be discussing what objectives will be today. So students will be able to illustrate the job market and respond to its changes over time. The students will then be able to relate how their education levels will affect their income. And lastly, the students will be able to identify skills that contribute to the workforce individually, and we will also discuss this as a class. So the first thing that will happen as the students are walking into the class is they will be performing a pre-assessment. So this will happen as they are coming in. They will notice two different columns on the board. In the first column, they will be asked to write down yes if they have ever had a job and what it was, and they will write no if they've never had a job. And then in the second column, they will write a word or phrase that describes a skill that they bring to the workforce. The only stipulation to this will be that students will not be able to write down the same thing if it's already been written. The objective of this pre-assessment is that me as a teacher will be able to gauge what experience the students have and where they stand in their knowledge of what skills are and how they affect their jobs. So to continue within the beginning of the class, we will use this video as an anticipatory set or a bell ringer. Rather than having you guys watch a 5-minute length video, I'm just going to briefly explain it. So this video, it's a YouTuber and they are just discussing what skills are most vulnerable and most wanted within the job market. So these skills, they range anywhere from communication to machine operation to leadership. These are just a range of skills employers are most wanting to look for in today's job market. So next, we will be jumping into what the job market is, and this is going to begin our instruction time. So the job market is just job openings that are available when you are ready to go to work. This could be anything from fast food to bankers to factory workers and anything in between. And within the job market, employees' needs are always changing, so it's important that we as employees are updated on what types of skills they're wanting. That way, as the job market evolves, we can evolve with the needs and demands of it. That way, we are always guaranteed a job, even in the hardest of times. So within the job market, there are different skill sets that are wanted and needed. So a skill set is just unique skills and abilities that you as an individual bring to the job market. And there are two types of skills. There's the hard skills and the soft skills. So the hard skills are measurable physical and mental abilities that allow you to complete a job. This could be driving, machine operation, creating documents, working an online program, training dogs, anything that you use physically or mentally that can help you get an advance up in the workforce would be considered a hard skill. Now, soft skills are on the other end of the spectrum. They are non-technical skills that are needed by most workers for success on the job. So this is what you would most think of as leadership, communication, time management, organization, things that do not require a physical ability, but that can be done based on your skill set. So we are now going to look back at the columns and what we have listed on the board. So how many of you guys can tell me what skills can be identified as soft skills and what can be identified as a hard skill? So as we are going through this list, we're going to identify which skills are which and how they're connected to the type of job that you have. Communication is the next important part of the workforce. It's vital to have in the workplace in order for you to communicate with employers, co-workers, customers, higher-ups, supervisors, even the janitors. Everyone needs to communicate in order for the workplace to flow effectively. So again, there's two types. There's verbal communication. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's with words, so speaking and writing. If you are talking to your supervisor about a problem you're having or sending an email to IT for help support, that's all considered verbal communication. The nonverbal communication is whenever you convey a message without words by providing clues and helping people interpret verbal messages. So this will include the body language, facial expressions, hand gestures, and eye contact. These are all signals that help explain what the verbal communication is trying to say, and it emphasizes your points whenever you need it to. Communication is used widely within a business. It's used for presenting business ideas, providing good customer service, using proper business dining etiquette, and so much more. You cannot work in a job without having some sort of communication. You will always need to communicate, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. As you guys are entering the job fair and job workforce. You guys will need to identify what type of skills and communication that you guys have. And the more experience, training, and education you have in your skill set, the more you can expect to earn as an income. More skills equals the more you're able to do, which means you can meet a lot of the high demand things and things that not many people can do. And some jobs are always going to be in greater demand than others. There are jobs that require you more physical labor that a lot of people don't want to do. Or jobs like a neuroscientist that there's not a lot of people who want to go through that much schooling, so they're always in high demand. So when researching for a job, there's going to be a couple of things you guys are going to be looking for. The job title is just the name given to the particular job of what it is describing. It's normally just a word or phrase that describes the main duties or tasks that the employer expects that the employees finishes. And then under the job description will be the job title. This describes what a job would be like, and it would include the education, experience, the hours worked, and details about what work site or location you'll be at. This will mainly give you the overview of what the job is about and what you'll be required to do without having to look or email any further. And as the world advances, you will need to be a lifelong learner so that you can be prepared to be a skilled worker and an informed customer. You will always need to advance your skills, or in jobs you're often required to do more training as you continue on just to keep up with the demand of what is needed. So there's your values and goals that you carry with you without your job. The values are the principles that reflect the worth you place on an idea or action, and they also define who you are. And the goal is a desired outcome that's based on your values, and it requires a plan of action that is developed and carried out. So values can be that you are truthful, and the goal could be that you always want to be honest with your employer if you do something wrong. And then the values and goals, they work together and should be considered when finding a job. You do not want to enter a job which you do not feel comfortable with all the tasks you're going to be completing. If you are going to be a lawyer, you are going to have to always be honest. So if you are not comfortable with being honest in every situation, you should not consider that work field. Jobs and education are highly related. The jobs require different levels of education. And there's two different types whenever you're looking at job education. There's formal and informal. So the formal education means you are attending classes and often earning a degree. This means you're attending most likely a university or an associate degree. You're attending a community college. And these show that you have learned certain skills and concepts as an actual degree that shows that you have completed these classes and you know what you're doing. Whereas in informal education, it does not happen within the classroom as part of the job. It includes on-the-job training and self-training. If you are a woodworker, a lot of times you do that by yourself. You know the skills, you learn it by yourselves, and that's your job, and that's okay. But that would be considered an informal education. Whereas me, a teacher, I had to go to school to learn what I'm doing, so that would be considered a formal education. And again, the amount and type of education you complete affects the amount of money you earn. Generally, people who have a formal education will earn more than people who have less education. And if the pay for a job is high compared to the education requirements, there's often reason. Going back, I mentioned high physical labor. It's going to be considered high personal risk. It also includes short career spans and completing tasks others are not willing to do. These are all reasons that jobs are in high demand because it's hard to find people who want to take the risk and do it. And finally, jobs and education. Education will affect your current and future job choices, so the choices you make about education is a serious responsibility. You want to make sure that education is considered an investment in your future, and the jobs you choose and the education you receive will affect the amount of money you can earn. So always keep that in mind whenever you're applying for college or trying to figure out what you want to do with your future. So, leading off of that instruction, sorry, I know that was a lot to take in at once. The guided practice. For this, we're going to be talking about what the skills the students can add to the board that they did not previously think of. So going back to the pre-assessment and what we talked about at the beginning of the instruction time, we identified different skills. So we will go back to this. We'll add in any other skills that they can now think of after they have learned what skills are. They may not have thought of driving as a skill, but it really is. Or knowing how to read a book. That's a skill too. So within these two columns that are already on the board, we're going to be adding in a third column. And this will be what skills we wish we could acquire for our dream jobs. Everyone has a dream job that they want to have. Even if it's being a princess, it's a dream job, so you have to have skills to do it. We will then choose these skills and we will decide which ones require formal education and which ones require an informal education. Leadership often has informal education. You learn it as you go through life. You know what it is. A lot of times you don't take a class for it, so that would be considered informal. Whereas knowing how to use the accounting system, that would be formal. You most likely went to a class and you learned how to do that. Even if it was just a high school class, it still requires some sort of education to go with it. Now, for the independent practice, we are going to be using this link, which whenever you click on it, it's basically a skills matcher to a career. So what this does is you go on and it's a quiz. And it's kind of a long quiz. It'll probably take about 10 minutes for the students to finish, 5 to 10 minutes. And they will go through this quiz. It will take their time, I hope. I will stress that point. And they'll go through and answer each question truthfully. Now, once you get through the different questions, it kind of modifies it to what it knows you're going to choose. That way you may not have to answer as much. And as you're going through, the students will answer them, and at the end, they will be given a list of different jobs that kind of match what their skill sets are. So the students will be required to screenshot this result. If they don't know how, I will be there. I will be helping them figure out what to do. And they will paste it into a Word or a Google Doc. And then they will also list a set of skills, and they will identify them as either hard skills or soft skills. Now, all of this will be on one document, and there will be a place in Google Classroom to submit it. Now, while this is a lot, it also goes along with everything we talked about throughout the class. This happened with our pre-assessment, the bell ringer, the instruction, and the guided practice. This just goes off of it. So this will be due by the beginning of the next class period. If need be, we can also have extra class time the next day to ask questions and anything like that. If they happen to work on it overnight and they find out that they don't really know things, that won't be an issue. I can easily modify my next lesson plan to include that time. I think this is one of the biggest things that students need to do, because jobs are one of the biggest parts of life. I mean, you spend 18 years in school and then you're stuck between going to more school or getting a job. And it's also something that it's always something everyone has to go do in their life at some point. So really stressing this point of you need to know that these are what you're capable of and you need to know how to apply it is one of the biggest things they should learn. They should know if they are good communicators, or if they have good leadership, or if they know how to operate a machine, because this will all help them get their dream jobs in the future, or it will help them learn what skills they do need to acquire so that they can get their dream jobs. So finally, for the closure activity, we are going to do a think, pair, share. This is one of my favorite activities because it really gets students to work together and it gets them involved in the classroom with a very short amount of time left. So the first 45 seconds, we will be using the time to think about ways education and skills affect the job market. They will be thinking about this alone, on their own, just for 45 seconds, enough to get a little thought popped up in their head that they can use to communicate with others. Then for 1 minute after that, the students will pair up with the person next to them. It can either be to the left or to the right, depending on the class. I may have to specifically tell them so that they know. But they will pair up with someone and they will discuss how to answer this prompt. They will have 1 minute to do this and they will work collaboratively to figure out an answer that best fits what both of them thought of. And then finally, with the last 3 minutes, they will tell the class how they believe education skills affect the job market. We will then work together as a class to figure out the correct answer, and I will correct any finishing questions at this time. So that is my PowerPoint. Thank you for coming and listening, and I hope you guys are all able to get something from this.